This podcast is for educational purposes. Our guests aren't scripted and are free to speak their minds. Therefore, their views and opinions don't necessarily reflect those of BridgeBio Pharma. Also, your doctor is your best source of information about any symptoms you might be experiencing. Please consult a medical care professional about any health questions and concerns. Now, we hope you enjoy the podcast.
Hi, and welcome to On Rare, a podcast produced by BridgeBio, a biotech company that focuses on developing treatments for those living with rare diseases. Welcome to On Rare's 2025 Year in Review. I'm your host, Mandy Rohrig, a member of the patient advocacy team at BridgeBio. It is hard to believe that David and I have completed our third year hosting On Rare. We've enjoyed speaking to so many inspiring people, caregivers, loved ones, and doctors, all who are supporting people living with some of the rarest conditions. This past year, we had a few new additions to the On Rare podcast. The first is On Rare on Location, where David and I travel to other parts of the world to visit our guests in person, in their homes, and get to know them on a more personal level. And the second feature we added was On Rare Innovators, that welcomes guests who are patient organization leaders, scientists, physicians, people who are taking action and improving the lives of people living with rare disease. This episode of On Rare is dedicated to all of those who took the time this year to share their rare stories with us. Here are some of the On Rare highlights from 2025. We begin with the incredible Katie. Katie is mom to 5-year-old Julian, who was diagnosed with ADH1 autosomal dominant hypocalcemia type 1 at 6 weeks old.
Maybe healthcare providers should trust moms a little bit more than they do.
I know. I think sometimes they're just dismissed because they think, oh, they're a new mom, or he's just a newborn baby, he's figuring it out. And sometimes it's like, I do think not everything's cookie cutter all the time. I think, do we need to investigate a little bit? They ran a bunch of panels and determined that his calcium was low and he had virtually no parathyroid hormone produced by the parathyroid glands. So he had virtually none in his body. And so they immediately started giving him IV calcium. I didn't even know what the parathyroid glands were. And being there without a total understanding of what it even was, such an intricate, delicate balance of what his body needed to be doing. We were either over medicating or under medicating, or that part was really hard. He can kind of tell me a little bit more now when he's feeling off. The way he describes it, as a child, a toddler, he says his throat feels wiggly. I found every resource that I could, reached out to every doctor that I could. We raised money for different foundations and resources. My daughter, we talk about it with people in school, that leads beyond just hypoparathyroidism. Everybody has something. We just might not know what it is. So always treating people well and knowing that people might be facing something that you can't always see, just like her brother. There's always, somebody to fight for. If it's not you, you can always fight for someone else. I have to be the expert. And as hard as that is, it was rewarding just to know that I have to fight for him. I'm the one who has to stand up for him when he doesn't have a voice. And I just learned I had to be the one to speak up. So that was really great. And I think encouraging other moms in this journey, I've since met many over the years that their children had something. It was just empowering and encouraging to have each other and trust yourself, because sometimes we are silenced or dismissed. So I think that part's been really good for me to be able to share that with others.
Next up are Philip and Sally. We had the true pleasure of talking to this couple who has been married for over 50 years and together since their college days in the 70s at UC Berkeley. Philip is another example of someone who struggled for years before getting a diagnosis. He finally learned that he had been living with a rare genetic condition called ATTR-CM. Here is Philip talking about his long journey to a diagnosis with his dear Sally by his side.
My first symptoms were GI problems. I started losing weight for unexplained reasons. And for 5 years, I was trying to get a diagnosis. Numerous doctors, numerous tests, got nowhere. At the start, I was a normal 172 pounds. I'm 6 feet tall. At my worst, I continued losing weight until I was down to 112 pounds.
Oh, my goodness. Can't imagine that.
My GP wrote to Mayo Clinic thinking they'll take me on as one of their mystery cases. They turned me down. They said, you have plenty of resources in the San Francisco Bay Area. You don't need us. By coincidence, I have a long-term, very good friend living in Los Angeles. I was talking to him about my problems. He had lived in Sydney, Australia, and got to know a GI doc and asked, who would you see if you were having all these symptoms? He suggested a doctor at Johns Hopkins University. I emailed him, and less than an hour and a half later, he had me order some tests, and he asked for special stains that none of the others had ever asked for before. I had amyloid deposits throughout my GI tract, and it was blocking nutrients from being absorbed in my system, thus the weight loss. He said, you need to be on IV nutrition immediately. I mean, I was on my last legs.
You were on death's door.
And I got on the IV nutrition, and it was a lifesaver.
Sally, this must have been a really challenging period for you to see your husband of then almost 50 years wasting away and losing weight and, as you say, being at death's door.
That's an understatement. The thing that's frustrating in hindsight, but one of his doctors, a GI doctor, finally said, you know what, you really just need to see a psychiatrist. I still growl when I think about that doctor. The lack of curiosity, the lack of caring was shocking to us because he had all the classic symptoms that if somebody had just paid attention and connected the dots, he had bilateral carpal tunnel, he had it in his heart, he had it in his GI tract, and it was all there and apparent, and people just didn't connect the dots.
Yeah.
So you went to Johns Hopkins. You saw the physician who had the ideas, what it might be, and did that physician give you the diagnosis? Or
Yes, he did. He instructed my GI doc at Cal Pacific Medical Center to take specific biopsies and to send them off to,
ironically, the Mayo Clinic.
Mayo Clinic. And so the results there showed amyloid deposits.
Mayo Clinic, who didn't want to see you in the first place.
It didn't want me in the first place. That's right.
And then who finally delivered the diagnosis to you?
My general practitioner, who really didn't know anything about it and just told me it's very serious, it's fatal, and I need to get my affairs in order ASAP. So I left that office with that information.
Wow. Sally, I'm going to ask you again, just...
He's looking for tears, honey.
There were lots of tears, lots of tears.
I imagine, just awful to hear.
I start to cry just thinking about it now, and then having to break the news to our daughter and all of that.
Yeah.
But that's not what happened.
So what happened?
We went to Stanford, and they knew right away. That's where you had the genetic test taken, right?
Yeah, and then they confirmed that it was hereditary amyloidosis. They told me it comes from my Irish ancestors. They told me what county in Ireland, and they told me how far back it goes. It's from an Irish king, King Galban, Galban, from the 5th century. County Donegal, way up north.
Your royalty.
Yes, this is insane. Coincidentally, my sister has the exact disease. She got the gene mutation as well. She was having symptoms before me. Same exact symptoms.
Oh, really?
She's going through her thing. I'm going through mine. But I had to call her and tell her the news because she was undiagnosed this whole time. Her response was, out of everything I told her, she said, oh, so we're related to royalty.
That was the take home.
That was the only thing she heard.
Is she over trying to get the keys to the castle is the question. That, I guess you could say that, seeing things on the bright side.
When we spoke with Katie and Allie, twin sisters originally from New York, living with late-onset Tay-Sachs disease, David and I were not only touched by their unimaginable story, but by their unwavering drive to make a difference for the Tay-Sachs community. Tay-Sachs is a rare genetic lysosomal storage disorder where cells in the body hold on to waste. And when the waste builds up, it causes a range of neurological symptoms. Here is Katie telling us what she did when she first was diagnosed with Tay-Sachs.
Well, it sucked. Basically, I found NTSAD online, but there was nothing. There was no one to talk to. No one had this. I didn't know anyone with late onset Tay-Sachs. I had no idea. I mean, I just basically started fundraising money. I started our Katie and Allie Bjork fund. We raised over $1.1 million in a couple of years, maybe like 5 or 6 years. But like, there's no treatment. There's no cure. There's nothing I can do right now. I didn't want to just sit there and cry, but basically I just want to raise money, see what we can do because someone has to do something. The kids who do have this disease don't live. So luckily, as shitty as this disease is, I'm going to live my life. It's just going to suck and get worse and worse and worse. So basically I wanted to raise money to maybe find a treatment or a cure to potentially find a cure for this disease.
That is extraordinary to raise $1.1 million, Katie.
Thank you.
How did you go about it?
Well, my mom worked at the New York Times 35 years, and actually they do run an ad in the New York Times paper 4 times a year to help raise awareness and find people with doctors and help find a cure, let's find a treatment. And I do know some people got diagnosed because of the ad in the paper. They brought the ad in with them. Like, I think I have this, like, please test me for this because it's very similar symptoms. So some people were diagnosed by using the ad in the paper, which is kind of cool.
So the ad helped to fundraise, but also to inform people about late onset Tay-Sachs.
Donations and a diagnosis, for God's sakes, both.
Yeah, I've seen the ad before. Very moving.
Pretty cool. We try updating it every quarter or so we try to update it as much as we can.
I know Katie told me a few times where people will come up to her and said, "Oh, like, is this you in this ad?" Daily members or friends they know who have similar symptoms to what Katie and I have experienced. Yeah. My mom is a force of nature, I would say.
They talked to her like she's a doctor. She's like, I don't know what the heck you're talking about, but they talked to her like, I mean, she's very social. She gets along with a lot of people, but she's one of those people that like, you don't want to mess with her. She's one of those crazy Italian New Yorkers. It's just, stay in your lane. Most days it's good times.
So you work full time and you live a productive life, but it's never out of your mind and it's always affecting you in some way or another.
It's almost every second of my life is Tay-Sachs, unless I'm like doing something in my mind. I'm at work all day where I'm like focused. Like my job is sitting at the desk and typing all day. But if I have to get up, I have to think about getting up. I can't just do steps without having a railing. Like it's every second of my life. If I'm moving, I'm thinking about walking. I'm thinking about, and if I fall and I'm by myself, I cannot get up. It's like I need to be close enough to where if I do fall, I have to use a chair or something. I can't get up on my own. So like I fell the other day at a restaurant and I was outside. My parents were with me, thank God, but like they had to grab a chair from the inside of the restaurant so I could use myself to like, it's very hard. It took me 10 minutes just to get up. And that's using a chair with 2 people involved who are adults. It sucks because it's just every second of my life. I don't mean to cry, but it's just everything I do revolves around this disease. And it's just shitty because it's simple things like taking a shower, walking around, just simple tasks. You constant anxiety on my mind. It's just 24/7. I almost wish I could get a break from it, but you can't. You just can't let yourself go because if I do fall, it's more anxiety than if I don't fall. So it's stressful because it's on my mind 24/7. And I wish I could take care of this, but there's not a cure. There's not a treatment. There's nothing I could do with this, unfortunately. So it's shitty in that way, but
agreed.
It's on my mind 24/7. I wish it wasn't, but it is.
This next conversation is with Daniel. He was our first On Rare On Location episode. Daniel, a Chinese adoptee now in his early 30s, lives with tuberous sclerosis complex, or TSC, a condition that causes non-cancerous tumors on the skin and throughout the body, as well as tumors in the brain, affecting his overall quality of life. Here's Daniel explaining his diagnosis and his drive to help other adoptees in the rare disease community.
We're together in Raleigh, North Carolina. Where does the story begin for you?
So I live in the Seattle-Tacoma area. I am a Chinese adoptee. I was diagnosed with TSC when I was about 6 or 7 years old through the dermatologist, through the white patches. It was during the late 90s when technology was still being discovered. There wasn't much information at the time. My adoptive mother, she got a book saying that here is what you're going to be facing and that you need to basically go see all these doctors. I was diagnosed with TSC post-adoption, not pre-adoption. And I think it lost a lot of people when they ask me, is like medical history and all other stuff. That's one of the hard parts. I had some sort of skin showings on my face as well as other areas on my body. I did have seizures when I was younger, waking up crying, screaming, couldn't sleep by myself. Seeing not only a dermatologist, but a neurologist, a nephrologist, all the other specialists that you need to see. Technically, I am considered a special needs child. It's affected my skin, my kidneys, my brain. So having seizures when I was younger. Actually, this happened 6 years ago. I guess I had an MRI, my yearly regular MRI scan, and get a phone call from the doctor saying, you need to go to the ER right away. And he said, you have a DVT. I'm like, what? What's a DVT? They're like, deep vein thrombosis. I'm like, I have no idea what you guys are talking about. Apparently that was caused from having the blood clot in the splenic vein. I didn't know what that meant. And I think that, I guess, saying that having those regular scans can find other things as well and complications. I traveled to my TSC clinic for my visit. I mean, for myself, if I have any issues with local doctors, I make sure that they know what they're doing. I've had RN look up what TSC was. They don't know anything about TSC. It scares the heck out of me because you don't know what they're going to do. And I think that realizing that I need people around me that look like me, need people that have the same condition as me, understand. And so I was very blessed to be able to reach out to the TSC community, almost 7 years ago. That's how long I've been with this organization and advocating for TSC, and especially in the rare disease community, to stay connected. We check in with everyone because it's fairly important, and I just don't want to lose anyone.
I'm reminded of a guest on our podcast, Effie Parks, also a podcaster, and she's a rare mom. And she said, you have to find your people. And it sounds like that when you became connected in the TSC community, you found your people. You found people who could understand what you're going through. And of course, you could be really helpful to them.
You could say that for a lot of communities, but yes, I think within the rare disease community, finding your people, finding your tribe, that's what they say in the adoption community, finding your tribe, finding people that understand you without having them judge you, question you, look at you differently. We need to learn from each other so we can become one and fight this disease together so that no one is left out.
You're a leader and advocate in the TSC community and also in the adoptee community. And the adoptee community, the subset of folks who live with rare disease too. I mean, this is great work that you're doing.
Yeah, I think it's really important. Just recently, I think in the adoption side, it's a topic we're linking a lot to, and it's opening a lot of people's minds of finding not only in China, but other countries around the world that have people that are adopted that have medical conditions. And I think it's really important to talk about. It comes down to family planning. It comes down to people's lives. And we need to support each person's life because in the end, we don't want people to be forgotten. The end result, we don't want someone to take their own life.
Next, in another On Rare On Location episode, David and I spoke with Caris, a young woman who we visited in her hometown of Cardiff, Wales. She lives with limb-girdle muscular dystrophy type 2I, a progressive condition resulting in muscle weakness. Caris is also a podcaster, connecting those in the LGMD community to share daily struggles and triumphs. Here is Caris talking about how she manages her condition.
Unfortunately, I don't have endless energy supply. I have to be very careful because, there is a high chance I could just burn out. A lot of people use the spoon theory. For me, that doesn't really work because I never know how many spoons I have.
Like you have so many spoons in an activity, then how much do you have left?
I don't know about you guys, but I don't wake up with 14 spoons in my bed. Doing things that non-disabled people do takes a lot more energy than it would for them, because for an average non-disabled person, walking up a hill might take up 5% of their energy. For me, it will take up 50%. It's all a case of just reassessing how I feel, and every day is different with LGMD.
So can you tell us about your current living situation? You're a young adult, you're not living at home with your family?
So I now live in my own apartment with my boyfriend Tristan, and we live on a ground floor, which is great for me because it's step-free, but he helps me so much, with day-to-day things, and he is good at kind of helping me regulate my symptoms, and we have a good kind of system going on.
How do you think about the future and what may happen with LGMD and what your life will be like?
Wow, what a question. Many times during my life, I've had a vision of what my future would look like, and many times I've had to change that vision. Having no expectations for the future is probably the best way to think, because that means that you're just open to anything. And yes, my condition has progressed and I do worry about so many things in the future, but I know that there's ways to adapt to it. I know that there's people in my life that I can lean on. I'm very privileged and grateful for the people in my life that I can turn to. So many connections now that I've made with other people with LGMD. A big thing is starting a family and how I would go about that. That's something that I've spoken to a lot of people with LGMD. A few of them have said to me that they would never have children because they're not willing to take the risk that they might progress even further, and they don't want to lose that. And I completely understand that. You know, it's a big subject to approach, but I am slightly more hopeful that there are specialists.
Actually, one of our podcast participants discussed this decision at length and was advised not to have children.
And she did.
That episode is with Lacey, called
Love Isn't Love Till You Give It Away.
Love Isn't Love Till You Give It Away.
That'd be amazing, yeah. I'd love to listen to that.
It's very beautiful. Can you tell us a little bit about your podcast?
It wasn't until after COVID that I decided actually I would love to start a podcast, and I just didn't really know what to talk about because unless you're a celebrity, no one cares about your life pretty much. So I needed a kind of a talking point, and I thought it would be good to maybe mention my LGMD, but I didn't want it to be all about that because who's going to listen to a podcast about some girl complaining about her disability? But it kind of turned out to be something very similar. I didn't want it to just be about me. I wanted it to be an opportunity to share some stories from people that may not have the chance to share their stories. Growing up, I didn't know anyone else my age with a disability. I didn't know anyone else that was going through the same thing as me. I just wanted to be the voice that I wish I had growing up and could turn to in my struggles, but also to raise awareness of different disabilities and chronic illnesses and any kind of life barrier, I call it. It's not just about disabilities. And there's so many amazing stories and amazing people out there. It's just been incredible to make those connections. And people have started to reach out to me to say that they're listening and that they love it, and it's something that they can finally relate to, and that really helps me.
The name of your podcast?
My podcast is called Unbalanced with Keris Davidge. It's available on all podcast platforms, and I do a mix of audio and video episodes, which is very exciting.
Next is our first of what we hope will be many conversations with On Rare innovators, people who are transforming the rare disease community. David and I traveled to Gijón, Spain to visit with Carmen, founder of ALPE, an organization which she created after learning her son, Iago, would be born with a form of dwarfism, achondroplasia. Here's Fanny, Carmen's longtime friend and interpreter, explaining why Carmen was driven to start the ALPE Foundation.
We were very clear about our wish to have ALPE opened to everyone, not just to everyone, but for everything. Life is complex and it has many different stages and issues, and we wanted to help in everything. It's ambitious, but this is our starting point. We just wanted to be there since the beginning, since a baby is born or before until the end.
Quedar, por lo que sonreír, a veces por lo que llorar.
We were a very little team at the beginning. It was Fanny and me, a doctor, a pediatrician, and a physiotherapist, an alternative specialist, herbs and psychologist. But it was all very modest at the beginning. We started to receive families. We wanted to give answers to all kinds of questions because we understood that everything in life is related. You know, like school and physiotherapy are not two different worlds, but one impacts the other. This with everything, psychology, food, everything.
I've had the honor of knowing you over 7 years, Carmen, and from the first time I met you, you could almost visually see the love emanating from you. And I'd like to know how one person can produce so much love for others.
Can I start?
Yes.
I think that ALPE is the legacy of my mom I hope that in the future I have a job same as as Alpe. It's more than a job, it's her life. I have two mentors in my life. That's Felipe and obviously my mom. They helped me a lot to understand my achondroplasia.
Tú das, pero también recibes mucho amor, ¿no?
Well, the love you give, you receive it back. I have met so many great people who love me that it's easy for me to love them. When I had that diagnosis of the achondroplasia of Jago, if I'd had someone to talk to, someone I could call, and they were experienced, listening and giving me support and love and understanding, it would have been so much easier for me. That how could I not do that? You know, what I do is listening and being there. Life is not just a straight line. It has curves and complications, and everything I give, I get it back, or everything I get, I give it back. You know, it's both ways.
So funny, you've known Carmen for many, many years, and I'd like to know how one person can produce so much love for others.
Well, first of all, I think that Alpe wouldn't exist without Carmen. Only her could have done it. And I wonder, why is that? And I think it's not having limits. You know, her mind or her soul is not very structured. Sometimes that's a problem for some specific things, but it's much better for the energy. I've heard her saying, the love you receive, you give it back. She's like there in the middle, letting things flow through her and putting things together from different fields, professionals. And Alpe is going to give you things, love, friendship. She's great to involve people. You know, she meets you, and if you have something to give to Alpe, she's like, come here. You're not going away. And that's amazing.
We had the great pleasure of speaking with Greg, founder and executive director of the DCM Foundation. Greg not only runs the organization, but also lives with Laminae cardiomyopathy, a genetic heart condition caused by changes in the LMNA gene, leading to various heart problems, including arrhythmias and its ability to pump blood efficiently. Here's Greg talking about the outcome for those who live with this condition, including, of course, himself.
As Clayton mentioned earlier, if you have Laminae, pretty much everybody's going to get sick at some point. We don't know exactly when. It tends to be 50s, right? You know, late 40s, 50s, maybe 60s. 60 to 80,000 people in the United States that have genetic cardiomyopathy. It could be higher as more people get genetically tested. And it's a very, once the disease starts, you know, it tends to be transplant or death. That tends to be the two long-term outcomes, which is tough. So,
and I take it that most people with heart failure, with cardiomyopathy, don't get genetic testing as a matter of course or their diagnostic workup.
No, and that this is my platform of yelling, screaming, and jumping up and down. So the guidelines from the American Heart Association, the American College of Cardiology, and the Heart Failure Society of America is that if you are diagnosed with idiopathic or non-ischemic cardiomyopathy, you should be genetically tested. Probably around 2% of the people that have idiopathic or non-ischemic. It's terrible. So we started a group under the DCM Foundation called the Genetic Cardiomyopathy Awareness Consortium about actually raising the awareness that you need to get genetically tested. The cardiology community in general just doesn't test people for some reason, despite the suggested guidelines. And so we even actually started our own genetic testing company for free genetic testing, funded by patients with genetic cardiomyopathy to get free online testing, swab test sent to your house. My kids were all genetically tested when I was diagnosed, so they're followed. So they all have either one of the Laminae or TPM1, the Laminae 331. Two of my children have, which seems to be the bad gene. But they're followed. They're followed every other year with EKGs, maybe a Holter monitor, echocardiograms. It's important that if you are diagnosed with genetic cardiomyopathy, Laminae cardiomyopathy in general, that your family get tested. And there's two things. So one, you can be followed. So at the first signs of disease progression, two things can happen. One, and the most important, is you can get an ICD. Knowing that there's probably 12 to 15 genes that cause cardiomyopathy, including Laminae. Most health insurance companies will pay for this. So you can get an ICD, which is an insurance policy, right? So you get a dangerous arrhythmia, you don't die, you live. Like that's a huge thing. The second piece is that the earlier you start drug therapy in the disease progression, the longer you will stay healthy. My heart had gone so far that really any drug therapies probably weren't going to be that effective at that point. The third thing is, in order for new therapies to be developed, more research, we need to have more people tested. If only 1.1% of the people are genetically tested, right? That's a small number of people. In the heart community, people just die of a heart attack. Well, what percentage of those had genetic cardiomyopathy and it was sudden cardiac death, ventricular fibrillation? I don't know what the numbers are, but it's a lot of people every year. We could prevent a lot of deaths by a rapid increase in genetic testing in this population. It's also going to help in accelerate research and potential therapies. We're starting an actually medical community campaign the second half of this year on educating the cardiology community on genetic testing. And it's pretty good too. And the company's called Everygene, and we have enough money raised through the end of the year and 5,000 free genetic tests. So many patients are dying, and we just can't help but try to create a solution, Yeah. We'll probably lose money on this venture, which is okay. But in the end, we'll have 5,000 people tested. I think we'll push the cardiology community to create better genetic testing solutions for patients.
And now our final episode of 2025. David and I had the honor of speaking with Nasha Fitter as part of our ongoing On Rare Innovator series. Not only is Nasha a lifelong entrepreneur who created Citizen Health, a company for consolidation and organization of complicated medical records, but, and perhaps more importantly, she is the mom to Amara, a child living with a rare neurological condition called FOXG1. Here is Nasha explaining how she used all of her experiences to innovate, create, and transform the rare disease community.
I was absolutely devastated, and I had 2 other children under the age of 4. My husband, unfortunately, had taken a really big job at that point, and those are sort of my darkest days if I think about it. There was so much going on, and just managing her and trying to figure everything out, and I was stressed and anxious and sad and all of those things. And then I had the fortune of one of my close friends from business school being married to your CEO, Neil Kumar, who I had a meeting with, and told me that, I've heard of the FOXG1 gene. And have you heard of something called gene therapy? And of course I hadn't. By the way, I hated biology in high school. It was my least favorite subject, which is so ironic. That one meeting with Neil gave me a whole new perspective that, wow, there is actually something I can do. And I am an entrepreneur and I like to solve really challenging problems. So the second I knew that, okay, there's something I can do, it gave me a lot of hope. And, it could be a coping mechanism, very likely, that I've turned a lot of my grief into trying to create change. That was a real turning point for me to say, okay, I have a choice. I can either be a victim of my circumstance, or I can just take this as a blessing. My daughter is so beautiful. I can see what I can do for her and for others. And so that's this chapter of my life that I'm living now.
How did you go from being one person, highly motivated with a goal in mind, to forming an organization?
Yeah, it's not about me. It is truly about the team that I've been able to form. I was so lucky very early in my journey to meet Nicole Johnson, who's my co-founder in the foundation. I met her, through Facebook, as we all do. And when you're in a rare disease situation, she struck me as a very positive person. And her and I were able to get people excited about what we were trying to create. And so we started that journey. I put a plan together. And with that plan, we call it the path to a cure. What is our path? And I talked to other parents to get them excited that we have a plan. Now, just let's start raising money. And that's what we did to raise our first $1 million. And, it's so much about the team that we built. You cannot achieve great things by yourself. I just think you have to know how to work in a team and bring people along with you. So where we are today is because of everyone's contributions.
Amazing. I think what we would be interested in learning more about now is Citizen and how that's helping the broader rare disease community.
Yeah. So we do hope that everything we do is going to help everybody else. I started Citizen when I started looking at how dysfunctional it was to collect patient data today. It is not possible when you have a patient population between 300 to 600, folks in America, where the majority of these patients are very sick, to expect them to be able to visit an academic center every 6 months to a year to collect data over a 10-year period. You will not get enough patients. They will drop out in between. You will not get a rich natural history study. You will not select the right endpoints, and no one will invest in your program. So we really looked at what can we collect within what a patient goes through every single day. One thing we go through is visiting our doctors. We are in and out of ER all the time. So the first thing Citizen has focused on is collecting the entirety of the medical record, which, by the way, I double dog dare you to go try to collect your entire medical record and see how hard it is. It is so difficult.
Impossible.
It's impossible. And then imagine if you're sick and you've got like so much data. So the first thing Citizen did was collect the entirety of that record and how we do it efficiently. And then it's how do we extract data from those medical records and normalize and harmonize that data to actually create a natural history study. That's how we started. Now we're adding on other layers of what patients are going through. And that's an entire new exciting chapter of Citizen. Oh my gosh, Mandy, I can go on and on. I mean, there's so much here to talk about. What I realized in my own experience is we have to support each other day to day. And we've evolved as a foundation, and now we do so much to support our families. But it's a lot. Just take it day by day. What can you accomplish day by day? It's a marathon. You got to take care of yourself as well. You have to be positive. That's my last advice.
Thank you for joining me for our 2025 year in review. Thanks to all who worked tirelessly to help make this podcast possible, including all of our guests who shared their stories and journeys, all of the medical professionals who helped us understand the different conditions. Many thanks to our producer, Amy Brooks. If you have any questions or comments, you can email us at onrare@bridgebio.com. We would love to hear from you. And finally, if you enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe. Thank you again for listening, and we hope you'll join us for our next conversation on Rare.